The president of the Duluth Travel Agency, Earl Rogers, feels the Duluth Airport Authority acted rather hastily when it decided to file a letter of objection with the Justice Department. The authority went on record opposing the merger of Northwest and Republic Airlines. Rogers says the board should have asked for advice from outside experts like himself before deciding to oppose the issue, but the Airport Authority says it was working under a deadline.
There was a time frame of 10 days in order to object to the merger. We acted in that time frame. It came up very quickly, and our only position was one of trying to maintain competition in the city of Duluth.
Airport Authority officials say a monopoly could result in higher fares and reduced service, but Rogers says the merger would only improve service.
The possibility right now of Republic being able to supply us with extra sections is not very probable. They don't have the aircraft. They're running where they can get the maximum market. The combination gives us opportunities of more aircraft.
Airport officials say they'll support a merger if Northwest and Republic assure them fares won't be increased and service won't be reduced. Officials from Northwest and Republic allegedly hope to bypass a normal hearing process, but because the Justice Department is now looking into the effects of the merger, a final decision on whether or not the merger will be approved won't be made for another 6 to 12 months. Lisa Molaski, Channel 3 News.
Five of 8 employees were fired Monday. 2 others resigned. The former workers believe their dismissal was due to the recent takeover of JP's by the Little Stores chain, and they're claiming unfair labor practices. The new owners deny it.
It has nothing to do with anything other than job performance.
Company officials contend they have a documented list of customer complaints, which they say the employees knew about.
Nobody ever came up and told us that we were rude to customers. Nobody said anything. In fact, they told us we were doing a good job.
Other charges involve the store's inventory, with company officials saying much of that inventory is missing.
Maybe there was a mistake in the books, an honest mistake. We're not really sure what happened.
The company insists it spent time and money trying to help the employees before finally having to fire them.
We made the right decision, and we are very content with it. We have a new group of employees that are working out very, very well under very stressful conditions right now.
While both sides continue to mull over the labor dispute, one thing is clear. The former workers plan to remain out front of PJ's until they're satisfied their side of the dispute is known. In Cloquet, Kurt Ludlow, Channel 3 News.
The Seaway Port Authority heard plans today of a $10 million project that would use its east warehouse to make fiber fuel briquettes and logs. The facility would employ 45 workers and produce 250,000 tons of alternative fuel a year. The head of International Biofuel says the company would use wood chips and industrial waste to make alternative fuel that's cheaper than what's available now.
Our costs of production will be below the cost of crude oil. It'll be, as far as I can tell, below the cost of natural gas on an interruptible basis. And that can start to bring this area back into a highly competitive position in terms of fuels.
McCartney says the product could be shipped both domestically and internationally, such as Africa, cheaper than other forms of energy. And he says provisions have been made in the plant's design to use refuse or any other biomass material to make it.
I know in this area it's becoming a real pain. And we have made provisions in that plant to briquette the material on a commercial basis to see what we can do to maybe help that problem out.
One question that still must be answered before production can begin is what to do with powdered milk and food for peace cargo that's still stored in the warehouse. The Port Authority has to decide where to move it before any work can begin.
One definition of the soap opera is a thick sandwich made up of slices of advertising spread with 12 minutes of dialogue. Include predicament, villainy, female suffering, a dash of nobility, and a sprinkle of tears. Serve 5 times a week. That pretty well sums up the daytime serial, even with all the changes in the 60-odd years since it went on the air. It is difficult to pinpoint exactly who put the first soap on. It is agreed, though, that it happened in the mid-20s. In one story, old-time radio announcer Norm Brokenshire had nothing with which to fill a half-hour of airtime. In desperation, he grabbed a book of short stories and read one aloud. Hundreds of listeners wrote begging to hear more since there was no real conclusion to the story, hence the start of the soap as an art form. It was in the 1930s that soap history was really made. Erna Phillips, the single most important influence on soaps, went to work for WGN in Chicago, penning a weekly family serial entitled Painted Dreams. She went on to create many more shows, including The Guiding Light, one of today's most popular soaps. By 1938, more than 1/8 of all radio time was devoted to daytime serials. Radio was a major form of entertainment.
Well, I remember growing up and being real small. In fact, the radio was the largest piece of furniture we had in the house. People would sit around the living room and we'd have the radio on and talk, and it was lots of fun.
With the advent of television in the early 40s, the level of suds began to go down on radio, yet the jump to television was not automatic. It was far too expensive. The first TV soaps were limited to one set, scripts had to be memorized, and many people were involved. 15-minute soaps were costly, so CBS experimented with the half hour, and the first truly successful soaps went on the air. As the World Turns was the first half-hour serial, and you can still sit down to it every day with some of the original actors. Many people have literally grown up with these soaps, and if you wish, you can have a sink full of suds every day. The soaps are a phenomenon which can't be ignored. Presently, there are 13 daytime and 6 evening soaps on the 3 networks. It's because of their popularity that the miniseries came into being. It is estimated that about 30 million viewers watch these shows daily, and unlike in the days of radio, it's not just the housewife who is watching. Tomorrow night, in part 2 of Soap Gets in Your Eyes, we'll find out just who is watching all these programs. Debbie Nerby for Channel 3 News. All right, you caught me. I just finished taping The Young and the Restless so that I can watch it after work tonight. I have to admit, I'm an addict for that show and for one other, not slanding, but I'm certainly not alone. Millions of people, men, women, children, the young and the old, sit down to watch these programs every day.
I think the soap opera phenomenon reaches literally all parts of the population. There are probably children that are still at home that watch it. There are as well as housewives, there are husbands who work different shifts that are home and can catch it. There are older people, certainly, that's their major form of entertainment.
There are generally 3 types of characters on the soaps: the good, the bad, and the weak. Though the topics covered over the years have changed along with the times, the underlying assumptions that prevail have not. There is a problem and a solution, and love is always involved. It's a chance to imaginatively participate in someone else's life. Millions of people do so every day.
My favorite soap is All My Children.
I watch Young and the Restless, then All My Children, then One Life to Live.
Yes, even the Bulldog hockey players are hooked. The shows generate as much as 60% of the network profits. Exact figures are a well-kept secret. More viewing is done in the winter than in the summer, and Monday and Friday are the most popular days to tune in. Some say those are the only days you need to watch to keep up on the story. Commercials fill about 25% of the time, and the soaps generate billions of dollars for the advertisers. They're hoping you'll become as addicted to their products as you are to the programs. And an addiction it certainly is.
I'm an addict of the soap operas.
When do you watch?
I watch from 11 o'clock in the morning until probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, after General Hospital.
Considering the number of people statistics prove are viewing the shows, it seems odd that few people will admit to it.
In the same sense as a person who's drinking too much doesn't admit that they're drinking too much, you're dealing with a denial process. They're probably already somewhat uncomfortable about what they're doing. And that means when you're uncomfortable about what you're doing, you tend not to be real honest about talking about it.
Why deny it? It's not an addiction that can cause you serious problems, or can it? Tomorrow night on Soap Gets in Your Eyes, we'll find out why we get caught up in these shows and whether that's good or bad. Debbie Nerby for Channel 3 News. Getting hooked on a soap is easier than, well, it's easier than landing a lake trout.
Really what got me started was I was a senior in high school and I came down with mono, so I was home for like 4 months and I just watched them every day.
I quit work and that to be home with our kids at home during the day, and I just kind of got hooked on it.
This was the scene at a shopping mall in Dayton, Ohio, when two of the stars from As the World Turns made an appearance. There is no denying the popularity of these actors. They are the characters to the avid fan.
The first time I ever knew that Lisa was really a monster was back in 1960. And I was standing on the street corner, and this lady came up to me and she said, "Aren't you Lisa?" And she was a nice lady in a Chanel suit or something. She really looked nice. And she said, "I hate you," and she bopped me.
For that fan, the line between fantasy and reality is a bit shaky. That is when there is a potential for problems. It is no longer healthy.
And I think our culture is into mesmerizing people. That's what they want them to do, be entertained, to not think, to not question.
For most people, it is obvious that these programs are not entirely realistic. It is simply an escape, a good way of relaxing. That's why they watch.
I suppose a lot of it's rich people and, fast time lifestyles, and I think they just get into watching and see how maybe some of the other half live.
There may even be benefits in the daily diet of soaps.
The possible benefits are that many soap operas present several problems, and problems are essentially unresolved situations. And one thing that does happen in soap operas is eventually the problems do get resolved and the situations do reach some closure. There are beginnings and endings, and that's very similar to life. People need a sense of continuity in their existence. They need a sense of being part of something that's ongoing. And for many people, loneliness is a major problem in their life, and they can relate to the characters that are on the television screen, and they literally cry and laugh and go through many emotions that people go through, their characters and their people.
The characters become members of the family. So as the world turns and we go through the days of our lives, remember we have only one life to live. Whether you are one of the young and the restless or a high roller in Dallas, there are millions just like you who wish to escape to Knots Landing or become a part of a dynasty. But don't forget, this is reality. That is another world. On special assignment with photographer Jim Wisniewski, Debbie Nerby for Channel 3 News.
I know in this area.
The Seaway Port Authority heard plans today of a $10 million project that would use its east warehouse to make fiber fuel briquettes and logs. The facility would employ 45 workers and produce 250,000 tons of alternative fuel a year. The head of International Biofuel says the company would use wood chips and industrial waste to make alternative fuel that's cheaper than what's available now.
Our costs of production will be below the cost of crude oil. It'll be, as far as I can tell, below the cost of natural gas on an uninterruptible basis. And that can start to bring this area back into a highly competitive position in terms of fuels.
McCartney says the product could be shipped both domestically and internationally, such as Africa, cheaper than other forms of energy. And he says provisions have been made in the plant's design to use refuse or any other biomass material to make it.
I know in this area it's becoming a real pain. And we have made provisions in that plant to briquette the material on a commercial basis to see what we can do to maybe help that problem out.
One question that still must be answered before production can begin is what to do with powdered milk and food for peace cargo that's still stored in the warehouse. The Port Authority has to decide where to move it before any work can begin.
This is one of the unique features that make living on Duluth Park Point a unique experience. But having its link to the mainland closed between midnight and 6 a.m. for a period of up to 3 weeks in mid to late March is an experience most of the 1,300 residents here could do without. But the city has done an excellent job of making the inconvenience as easy to deal with as possible, according to City Councilor Richard Braun, himself a Park Point resident. The main concern, he says, is providing for emergency situations.
We are a senior community. We have a big senior center, and you know, we've lost our school, and part of the reasons of that, we are an aging community, which can lead to more medical emergency services, and we do have 2 rest homes down on the point.
Additional police, fire, and medical personnel will be stationed on the point during the period of construction, which is part of the Duluth Piers renovation project. The entire plan will go before the City Council tonight, but Braun says he expects little or no opposition to the proposal, just perhaps a little more consideration in the future regarding the unique problems Park Pointers encounter.
I don't think you'll find any Park Pointers at City Hall tonight ranting and raving about the situation. But in turn, I hope that the city will remember the 4th of Julys that we put up with and give us some extra help during those kind of times, because those are equally as annoying and inconvenient too.
A ferry boat will shuttle passengers between the arena and the Corps of Engineers vessel yard on the point once an hour during the time the bridge is up. Jeff Potts, Channel 3 News.
Is that right? To most of us, worms are slimy, ugly, frightening, and worthless creatures. But ask the people who raise worms for a living, and they'll tell you worms are worth much more than you think.
It's a real profitable business. I mean, we're looking at, on a small scale, we're looking at $1,200 gross a month at $25 a thousand.
Anderson and his family are part-time worm farmers. They raise fishing worms in their basement using a system designed by Wiggle Worm Haven out of Racine, Wisconsin. Anderson says the system is so clean and efficient, his wife even helps out.
I didn't have to convince her. When we went to Racine, Wisconsin, saw how they did it. It was clean, efficient, no smell, no worms all over the place. That's what she had in her mind. I did too, kind of. I didn't know.
Wiggle Worm has developed a plastic pail method of raising special hybrid fishing worms. They grow faster than regular night crawlers, from this to this in 2 months. The worms can also withstand heat and cold, allowing them to be shipped nationwide.
We're making it into a exacting science. Unlike the past history of the worms, where you're throwing them into a bed, in a box, and hoping for the best, our system is controllable.
Because of that, Chapman says it's a profitable business to be in. Plus, he says the worm market has hardly been tapped.
There's over 52 million people that purchased a fishing license, and looking at a national potential in the industry, last year without marketing for the last 2 years, we filled less than 20% of our orders on a national scale without marketing.
Despite the company's success, Chapman says he always gets the same reaction when people find out he's a worm farmer.
Especially I say, worm farming? There's money in that? And it'll change, but I hope. But not right today. You don't get a lot of respect. You get a lot of chuckles, more than anything else.
Meanwhile, the folks at Wiggle Worm Haven are doing some laughing of their own. All the way to the bank.
Current Minnesota law prevents the construction of billboards like these along highway right-of-ways, and if you do see signs, they're limited to the kind that name towns and highways. But things are a-changing. The state of Minnesota has jumped into the advertising business in an effort to provide motorists with more information, and despite the state law banning advertisements, this new form of billboard is considered perfectly legal.
First of all, the signs that are being placed on there are not traditional billboards, first of all. And secondly, it is under the auspices of the state. This program is under the auspices of the state, and the state controls the kind of advertising through establishing the standards for the kinds of businesses and so forth.
A company called Logo Signs Incorporated in St. Cloud erects, maintains, and sells the signs for the state, but only to those businesses which meet certain guidelines.
They have to be open a certain number of hours. They have to provide a certain kind of a service. Now, the services that are advertised on local signs are services that the traveling public would need, such as auto service locations, hotels, motels, camping facilities, restaurants, things such as that.
The state isn't going to get rich on its new venture, but it claims that's not the point. The point is to offer motorists better service. And Bray claims it may actually minimize the number of billboards adjacent to highway right-of-ways. Michelle Lee, Channel 3 News.
These Indians from the Bad River Indian Reservation are singing a song in honor of the American and Bad River Indian flags. It's the opening to a ceremony called the Circle of Life.
A cultural thing, we go into the Circle of Life. When we first get in, we offer to tobacco and go around. And after that, one of our spiritual leaders will either bring the sweet grass around to cleanse our soul and our minds and our bodies so that we can get closer together, or they bring the pipe around, the peace pipe.
For the first time ever, close to 200 students from Ellis Elementary School in Ashland were there to watch. School officials felt a trip to the reservation would be a good way for the children to get a little closer look at Indian culture.
We're neighbors. We need to get along, and that's the big thing.
Many of the children have no idea about what life in Odena is like, and I think that this is probably the first time that we've ever done anything like this, and I think it's a wonderful experience for the children.
Many Wisconsin Indians and whites have split over hunting and fishing rights outlined in century-old treaties, causing hard feelings. School officials hope that meetings like today's will work to bridge that gap through the state's children. Lisa Molosky, Channel 3 News.
The purchase of this house, and whether
Councillor Cynthia Albright brought the issue to light when she expressed concerns about the possible conflict of interest arising from the mayor's purchase of this home on East 3rd Street from Gino Palucci. At the same time, the city is negotiating to purchase the Palucci-owned Chung King property in West Duluth to make room for the Lake Superior Paper Company. In a sharply worded release issued this afternoon, Palucci said, "The suggestion of the appearance of a possible conflict of interest in the My Family sale of a house to Mayor John Fido is both ridiculous and insulting." Palucci released documents from the realty company handling the house, indicating interest in the home over the past 2 years was minimal and the list of needed repairs was growing. Councillor Albright told us this afternoon she only wants the mayor's assurance that the city would not be placed at a disadvantage in future negotiations with the Palucci family as a result of the purchase of this home. The mayor responded by saying he simply made the best deal possible, but the matter was strictly a private transaction. Included, however, in Palucci's release is a letter dated February 21st to the mayor indicating Palucci's belief the Chung King property is not a necessary acquisition for the paper mill, adding he would like to hold on to the property as a future employment opportunity. City business development officials disagree, saying the Chung King property is needed to complete the paper mill project. The city made an offer for that land last Friday. Jeff Potts, Channel 3 News.
By helicopter, it's only a 20-minute ride to Gobea from Panama City. It's 2 hours by car, until the road ends. To residents of the northern coast, getting to the towns from outlying villages is close to impossible. The jungle is thick and nearly impenetrable, but that's changing, thanks to engineers from the Army Reserve and Army National Guard. The engineers are literally carving a road through the jungle, and Congressman Sonny Montgomery is seeing firsthand how these citizen soldiers are getting the job done.
I think it's one of the best military training programs I've been involved in, and I've been around a long time.
The guardsmen and reservists live in tents, the heat and humidity a constant companion. The crews work from dusk to dawn, sometimes into the night, but the benefits are far-reaching.
Where can you, the United States, turn a territory over to people like this and let them start from the very beginning of rooting out a road through woods in the territory? Nowhere in the United States can we do that.
It's not just the training either. The guardsmen and reservists who will leave here will tell a different story of what's actually going on here in the jungles of northern Panama.
We have a lot of misinformation back home,
that is being spread around, and these people go back and say, look, I've been there. I know what it is. You know, it isn't that at all. This and this, and they tell the truth of what they've seen down there and what they've experienced, and I think this is excellent for our people and for our country.
Montgomery feels the country is getting the most out of the taxpayers' money by using these citizen soldiers. They seem to possess a certain spirit.
If you give them equipment, they can do the job. They are doing the job.
Congressman Montgomery says if he has his way, Guard and Reserve forces will continue to build roads and bridges like this one across the Rio Indio River. That would be a fitting legacy indeed to reserve resourcefulness and efficiency. Reporting from the Rio Indio River near the town of Gabella, Panama, I'm John Tyson with Steve Strom for Channel 3 News.
The current code is excellent, and it's nationally recognized as being excellent.
The current system perhaps needs some fine-tuning, but it doesn't need major surgery.
Minnesota is far away, in my estimation, a very humane, progressive state with how they deal with their youth. No question about it.
But I think that the overall chemical dependency and mental illness industry and treatment profession are aware that there have been problems. There have been a number of news reports. There have been a number of studies which suggest upwards of 25% of the treatment days for chemically dependent juveniles have not been necessary.
I'm in favor of preventing abuses and checking all institutions to make sure abuses don't occur.
Author of the bill, Senator Mike Freeman, son of former Governor Orville Freeman, says juveniles need more rights, that too many juveniles are improperly placed in treatment outside the home.
Right now, a juvenile could be taken to a facility by or against the wishes of his parents, and if admitted, they're there. They can't get out.
Senator Randy Peterson conducted statewide hearings and recalled testimony from a woman kept in secure detention for skipping school.
Basically, she described her problem as she was just had a social problem, didn't like going to school. And in dealing with that, her parents brought her to some facility, and I don't remember what the facility was. It was somewhere in the Twin Cities, though. And she basically was kept there and told that if she left, the police would be sent to bring her back. And she ended up spending 17 months in this facility for truancy.
But many think abuses are rare, that the current Code 260 and rules of court adopted in 1983 are sound.
A youth would not come here under one charge or two or three or four. It would have to be a series of events that have taken place within their community, within the school, a real chronic situation before a child will be taken out of a home.
But the Freeman bill, at least the bill I'm aware of, it keeps changing, but the Freeman bill would go far beyond that and basically prevent parents or juvenile authorities from placing children in treatment who need it.
But if we are impeding a person's liberty, whether they're 17 years of age or 25 or 50 years, I think we've got to make sure that those people have some procedural rights to have their situation reviewed if they in fact don't want to be there.
Tonight at 10, I'll look at how Freeman proposes to extend juvenile rights. Opponents feel the bill's direction is towards more rights, but also towards less responsibility and less accountability for offenders, posing a danger to public safety. Janet Carvinen, Channel 3 News.
The people of northeastern Minnesota, the law enforcement people I've talked to, the judges from northeastern Minnesota and Duluth area, the parents that have talked to me from there, social workers, school principals, teachers have been very opposed to the bill. In fact, I've never seen such universal opposition to any piece of legislation in my 6 years in the Minnesota Senate.
But what this bill wants to do is throw this system out and replace it with a system that all the experts say won't work.
It's no secret that the Freeman bill is heavily opposed. Even Senator Randy Peterson, in favor of the bill, sees a major flaw in the criteria for holding a lawbreaker.
Some violent crimes that a kid could commit, and they wouldn't necessarily be held by the intake officer. I want to clarify that some more. So it'd be things like that that one is one that I think is a major, a big point, something that we really can't let just slide by.
You could have a history of armed robbery, doesn't matter. You have to let the misdemeanant go and wait for him to commit another crime or run away, and then you can lock him up if you can find him.
Officials now have the option of secure detention for offenders, but they wouldn't under the Freeman
First
bill.
of all, it makes it very difficult to put any juvenile, no matter how bad the crime, in secure detention. It's an anti-public safety measure.
Freeman believes the measure would free up the courts for more serious cases.
But the minor cases, the shoplifting, the first-time truant, we're trying to divert that person away from the juvenile system.
But Judge Martin says that would eliminate needed intervention.
This bill would say never. You can never place a misdemeanant in residential treatment. And that's wrong. That's tying the hands of parents and the courts. And what they'll be doing is withholding needed treatment for children. And that's abuse. That's child abuse, in my opinion.
Tomorrow night at 6, I'll examine the effect the bill would have, if passed, on treatment centers in operation in St. Louis County. Janet Carvin, Channel 3 News.
Under the Freeman bill, Woodland Hills would have to shut down. Thistledew Forestry Camp would shut down. Gilfillan, Northwood Children's Home, 2001, St. Cloud Children's Home, St. Croix Forestry Camp, any number of facilities that are necessary if we're going to deal with juvenile delinquency or with behavior or emotionally disturbed children.
The question to me really is, I want to save those treatment facility spots and that expensive care for those who really need it.
The courts can now place juveniles in treatment facilities under the current code, but the Freeman bill would alter the standards of admission.
And in order to place a child in treatment under this bill, you have to find a kid to be mentally ill or chemically dependent. And I'm not sure that it's a good idea to be labeling kids like that.
My belief is that if you can help young people, they can be put on a different path, and some need an avenue like a residential treatment center to get back on that path.
I thought what was best for me is just go about my life like I was going, and now I know that it wasn't right.
They wanted me to get help while I was young, before it turned around to the point where I was uncontrollable.
And it's also the intrusion in the juvenile's life. You're taken out of your school, you're taken away from your friends, your life is interrupted at a very critical and vulnerable time. And yes, those who really need the treatment, they should be. But those who aren't, let's try outpatient first. Let's try counseling first. Let's try to work through those. Now, the ones who've got severe mental illness problems and need medication and psychotropic drugs, yes, they should go to the treatment facility.
These legislators who are pushing this bill do not know what they're doing. They've never worked with children, or at least not enough anyway. They don't know the type of child we're dealing with in juvenile court. We deal with children who are afraid of themselves and other people. They're out of control. They're way off track. They want intervention. They want somebody to come in and take control and get them back on track, for the most part.
The bill has passed the Judiciary Committee and now goes to the Senate floor, so revisions may still be made on out-of-home placement standards. But some feel if those standards are left as is and the bill passes, juveniles who need treatment may not receive it. Janet Carvin, Channel 3 News.
I need a police on emergency, please.
What's the problem?
Somebody just broke into my house and he's beating up on somebody. Now, come on.
Do you know who it is?
My ex-husband.
On this phone, he said, do anyone back in the house?
Please go back to my mom. My dad's going to kill my mom.
What's going on?
My dad's trying to kill my mom.
Domestic violence is not new to the Northland. In fact, Duluth police report the number of men arrested for battering their spouse or girlfriend has risen from 104 in 1983 to 170 in 1985. But officials at the Duluth Police Department say that rise may be misleading.
Oh, great, the cops. Get up. I didn't hurt you. Get up. Just get up.
Since 1980, a mandatory arrest policy has been in effect in Duluth. That means if police respond to a call and determine battering has occurred, that batterer is arrested and immediately taken into custody.
I'm not going to hit her again, all right?
When we started this mandatory arrest policy, number one was that discretion was being taken away from them, and number two, that the number of assaults against police officers would escalate. This did not happen.
Up until recently,
domestic abuse, while not legally sanctioned, people kind of looked the other way. It wasn't seen as a crime as we see it that way in Duluth, and as people across the country are now seeing it, that men do not have a right to physically abuse their wives and partners.
But now it is considered a crime, at least in Duluth, and if the batterer pleads guilty, he faces up to 90 days in jail or a 1-year probation sentence coupled with 26 weeks of court-ordered counseling.
Most of the men who are mandated to counseling, I think, are hostile and angry that they have to go. But usually by the time they've finished, they're glad that in some ways that the arrest actually occurred and that they did have to go to this counseling.
Once the men get in to counseling and find out what counseling is all about, they cooperate pretty much. But we have isolated cases where they are reluctant to cooperate.
Court-ordered counseling isn't a guarantee the problem will be taken care of, or that the couple involved in the case will be able to live together again.
My philosophy is that we are in the business to end violence with any relationship. If that relationship terminates, it terminates hopefully for some good reasons on both parties.
Statistics show most couples who go through counseling do end up getting divorced or are permanently separated. Tomorrow we'll talk to battered women who have lived through this process. Lisa Molosky, Channel 3 News.
I don't want a divorce, but I can't live like this anymore. I need some time. Maybe then we can work things out.
Maybe. Maybe when here you are, you've got a court order against your own husband.
I don't want to talk about it.
Kathy, if you go through with this, we're finished. I mean it.
Stay off of this property.
We're finished.
Steve, get off this property. The OFP says you are not allowed on here.
Deciding to prosecute a husband or boyfriend is a very difficult decision. In fact, most spouse abuse cases go unreported. But there are reasons why women stay in abusive relationships.
And how are you going to get money? You don't even know how to do anything, for crying out loud.
They try and keep you in the relationship by using emotional abuse. They tell you that if you leave them, you'll never be able to get a job. You'll be on AFDC the rest of your life. You'll lose your kids because you're such a bad mother that he'll take you to court and you'll lose them.
The first time I was beaten up, I was kicked all over my kitchen. And I put my husband in jail, and I figured it was just the alcohol, so I stayed with him.
He would make such promises. He would promise to go to counseling. He'd promise to go to here. He'd promise so many things, and I wanted so badly to believe. And then finally, hope dies.
Abused women also feel guilty. They don't leave the relationship because they feel that somehow they're to blame.
He had a butcher knife at my throat and was saying, "Why are you making me do this to you?" And he was putting the blame on me and making me feel like I was the crazy person and I had done something wrong. He was telling me it was all my fault, and you hear that enough, you start believing it.
Mothers in our culture are to blame for everything. That mother is the protector, again, that's a cultural and social message that mother will protect us. Mother is the backbone of that family, and no matter what she does, she's doomed to fail.
Prosecution may end the physical abuse, but it doesn't heal the emotional wounds or end the nightmares.
It's been almost 2 years for me, and there are still the nightmares. And how do you deal with that, and who do you talk to?
Women who have been through these types of ordeals say the best therapy is group therapy. Once you're able to share your troubles with women who've been through the same kinds of experiences, you gain the strength to get help.
And it's that coming in contact with each other to share common ground, that we don't have to make excuses, or we don't have to deny what's been happening to us. And so that's the commonality that we share. And it's out of that commonality that we become empowered, and that we will no longer tolerate those kinds of abuses against us.
Tomorrow night we'll talk with men who've battered their wives. We'll hear their side of the story. Lisa Molosky, Channel 3 News.
No matter what I said, it was wrong. I just couldn't take it no more. I lashed out by slapping her.
That type of response isn't unusual when talking with men who abuse their wives. They feel problems can be solved with physical violence or verbal threats. Why do they do it? For most, it's a way to assert their control.
You more or less swallow her
up. You know, she isn't the same person anymore. You can see her self-esteem go down. You can see the fear, everything, you know, and once you see that, you know you have control of the situation.
Battering is learned behavior. 70% of the men counseled in Duluth have either been abused as children or have witnessed violence while growing up.
I come from, I guess you could say, an abusive family. I know where I spent most of my time was under the kitchen table or under the bed. And that was most of the time throwing things and yelling and screaming.
Growing up with violence and stuff like that, you learn that anger and intimidation does work. It does control people and causes a lot of fear. And once you got that fear, then you get more or less got them under your thumb. You know?
Unlearning that behavior is a long process, and most men can't do it on their own. It takes getting arrested and ordered into counseling.
Time and time again, I will never batter again.
At first I had to admit that I had a problem with it, you know. You just get tired of hurting other people.
This program, I think, has done a lot to me. You know, I didn't like it at first. I didn't like it at all. For one thing, it was a pain in the butt, you know, come here every week. And now I enjoy coming.
What's going to happen?
Not all men respond to counseling, but counselors say those who want to change can change. But it takes time, and a relationship doesn't usually last through it. Tomorrow night, we'll find out what effect spouse abuse has on children. Lisa Molosky, Channel 3 News.
That's my car. It's mine. I don't lie.
The thing we don't realize is too is that the children pick it up from us, you know. We don't realize we are the role models to that violence and abuse and stuff like that.
Diane, listen to me, would you? Get out of the way.
Children do learn from their parents, and evidence of that learned behavior can show up at a very early age.
My 2-year-old is very violent. Throws fits, hits, bites, kicks, says swear words. When something goes wrong, he'll come up to me, and instead of taking it out on the person that, you know, has done the wrong, he'll come up to me and start beating on me.
Experts say children who live in a home where spouse abuse occurs are twice as likely to be abused themselves. And when men abuse their children, the effect on their wives is often devastating.
When he abused my kids, I guess I would have rather he broke every bone in my body than what he did to my kids. That hurt even more.
But children don't have to be abused themselves to be affected by violence in their home.
He witnessed an argument which was over his bedtime where his father choked me until I was almost unconscious, and he developed a speech problem from that.
I think just the fact that my son witnessed the abuse was enough abuse, and I think that prompted me to leave, you know, the effect it was having on my son. I did not want him growing up witnessing something like that.
And you wouldn't think a person that sees stuff like that would do stuff like that, but I guess that's the only way you were brought up to control a situation.
Experts say the only sure way to get at the heart of the problem is to intervene and work with the entire family. They say intervention is the only way to stop the cycle of violence.
We could stop the battering today with that perpetrator, that batter. But I don't think we can stop the future unless we get involved in that family system and help that family reorganize themselves and teach them all nonviolent ways of living.
But changing societal views on violence isn't easy, so in the meantime, the cycle continues. On special assignment, this is Lisa Molosky, Channel 3 News.
Was an image that this was a tough place to do business because of the labor situation. I think the results of this survey that we conducted will dispel those rumors.
At 96.5 of all the contracts that were negotiated and settled over this 3-year period were settled and concluded successfully.
The survey, conducted by the Duluth Area Management Labor Association, began 3 years ago, about the time they incorporated to improve labor relations in the Northeast Minnesota and Northwest Wisconsin region.
We want people to realize that, first of all, if they are in fact saying it's a tough labor area, they're running business out of here, when in fact it isn't.
In what is considered a heavily unionized region with 49,000 union workers, there were over the last 3 years just 18 strikes to 503 contract settlements. 2 of those strikes were national with no local option. Nearly half of those 18 strikes occurred in the building trades. Tonight at 10, we'll look at why strikes occur more often in the trades and how that might affect the construction of the Lake Superior paper mill. Janet Carvin, Channel 3 News.
It will only have 32 rooms and employ about 10 people. That's small compared to a lot of hotels, but community leaders in Solon Springs have big hopes for their new convention center.
For a village the size of Solon Springs, I would equate it to a small Barker's Island type of development. What it can provide is a focal point and an impetus not only for that will stabilize some of their existing commercial development in the downtown, but also maybe stimulate some further development of the Lucius Woods campground that Douglas County has just taken over.
The idea was the brainchild of 2 Texan businessmen who own cabins on Lake St. Croix, and developer Bill Koberick says he thinks others will find the area just as compelling as he does.
I can't say it's a certainly, no, but we are taking a risk. It's quite a large risk, but we've run feasibility studies. We've had several feasibility studies done on the project. They all look favorable, but nothing is a sure thing. We feel, though, that we wouldn't be doing it unless we felt that the bottom line would be positive.
And businessmen like Jim Pettit say they'll also benefit.
I believe it's going to help the gas stations, the restaurants. We have 4 restaurants here in town. These people have to eat someplace. They need gas for their vehicles, maybe need a few groceries, bakery items. So it's going to help everyone in the community, not only Solon, but the surrounding area also.
Even though construction workers only broke ground today, the foundation will be in place tomorrow. And on May 15th, the doors of the St. Croix Inn will be open. In Solon Springs, John Schottel, Channel 3 News.
Representatives for the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission were on hand to discuss their proposal for reuse of the DM and IR railroad line.
Look at 4 major reuses of the rail line, and felt that the excursion train would be probably the most beneficial to the region and the most viable use of that line or that right-of-way.
The trips would be about 30 miles and would include a catered dinner. And the price of this relaxing venture? Anywhere from $6 to $20, depending on who caters the dinner. The train trip will start here at the Duluth Depot and end up at the depot in 2 harbors. But organizers are looking into a more extended trip that would include most of northeastern Minnesota.
Perhaps a train would leave from Duluth, go up to Grand Rapids area, then go up through Hibbing, Virginia, up to Tower, Sedan, and then perhaps down to 2 harbors and then back to Duluth. That's a real potential, probably be a 2 to 3 day trip and stopping overnight in a couple of places.
Hinsrud says the northeastern trip would take passengers to see attractions that they might otherwise pass on by, like Tower Sudan and Ely and the museum in 2 harbors. And with support of the Minnesota Department of Transportation, Hinsrud and other organizers are hoping these excursion trips will soon be on the right track. Linda Hammond, Channel 3 News. From an initial pool of 35 recruits, 25 low-income senior citizens from throughout northern Minnesota will be hired by the Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency to serve as tour guides.
We hope to be able to utilize the wonderful resource we have in northeastern Minnesota. By that I mean the wonderful people we have who've lived here for a long time and love to see new people come into our area and love to tell these new people how wonderful our area is.
The hospitality hosts, as they'll be called, will be paid $4 an hour and will receive more than 100 hours of training.
They will be uniformed, we will have billboards, and we are also looking at generating more money to assist those groups in communities who want to hire these people.
The AEOA will pay half the salaries of the new workers for 21 weeks, and they expect the hiring agency to pick up the other half. The recruiting process will start here at the AEOA office in Virginia, Monday at 9 in the morning. Then it will move to other locations within the 7 counties AEOA serves. The hosts should be ready to work by the opening of tourism season, sometime at the end of April or early May. In Virginia, this is Lisa Molaski for Channel 3 News.
Duluth City officials and representatives of the paper company are all clearly distressed about being cast in the role of possibly preventing Palucci from reopening the Chungking plant and eventually employing 1,000 workers there. So much so, in fact, that developers have hired an engineering firm to reevaluate plans for the paper mill.
We've asked Western Engineering, the firm who's been designing the mill, to take a look at Mr. Palucci's request to see if in any way it could be accommodated so that he could proceed with his project and we could proceed with ours in the same location.
But Lavoie goes on to say he has grave reservations about the compatibility of that endeavor, opinions shared by Mayor John Fido and city business developer Dave Seebach, who today sent a 5-page letter to Palucci summarizing the city's position. In that letter, Seebach told Palucci he believes there is room for both plants in Duluth, but not necessarily on the same site. Seebach said he's open to cooperative efforts, as Palucci suggests, that would result in the creation of over 1,000 jobs. The 2 developments to watch now are the results of that engineering review at the site, which will be finished tomorrow, and how those results will affect a summit meeting between Palucci, owners and developers of the paper company, and Duluth City officials, which is set for 1 week from today in Duluth. Jeff Potts, Channel 3 News.
It's survival. It's a question of many of these people being able to stretch their dollars when you live in a harsh climate, simply to stay in their homes and feed their families and clothe them.
2 years ago, 11 of these trucks winterized nearly 1,000 homes in the Duluth area. Now 7 are idle. And a number of federal budget cuts could stop another 2 right in this garage this year. Nationwide, Congress plans on cutting over $80 million from weatherization programs like this one in Duluth. But program coordinators say the state could use some money from an overpricing lawsuit against the Exxon Corporation to keep the program intact.
Minnesota will be receiving $32 million. It has been recommended that $18 million go into weatherization program funding, which will keep us alive for some years to come.
But state lawmakers are determined to keep the budget to a minimum next year, and the chill of another Minnesota winter may well be determined in a heated debate on Capitol Hill. John Schottel, Channel 3 News.
So we're looking at trying to create a market there with
There are starting to be great changes in this West Duluth neighborhood, as these houses on North 53rd and 54th Avenue West are scheduled for demolition tomorrow morning. And deadline pressures for city officials have made communications with residents at times questionable.
I've talked to some people in West Duluth, and I think that the biggest concern has been not knowing quite where to channel frustration, questions regarding the project. You know, do they call their city councilor? Do they call the mayor? Do they call Lake Superior Paper Company? Who do they call?
Councilor Paymar thinks the city should hire a full-time person on a temporary basis to answer questions and bridge communications between the company, city, and affected citizens. And he says, putting the project in perspective, the proposal makes sense.
This is one of the largest developments that the city has seen in many, many years. And it's a project that basically is being constructed in a neighborhood in West Duluth.
There's a tangible fear there. How that is handled is necessarily a very, very sensitive process, and it's not just dollars and cents.
It's difficult to put a price tag on the emotions of residents whose homes will be leveled, this one as early as tomorrow morning. But Paymar thinks someone to keep residents informed would at least ease their minds. Janet Carvin, Channel 3 News. Oh yeah.
I don't know, Deb, what do you think?
Sure.
Jody in this?
It's good to have you in there.
Yeah.